Pay attention, boys and girls, because here's something that's going to slide under the radar because nobody really pays attention, I guess, except me. In front of the U.S. Supreme Court today, the Trump administration argued that they can arrest anyone at any time for any reason, whether they're a citizen or non-citizen, and ship them overseas to a prison outside of the United States. Now, they're talking about Venezuela, but they're saying they can do it at any time, anywhere, to any prison in the world outside of the U.S. for any reason they want. And the courts have no jurisdiction to stop them. This is what the Solicitor General of the United States argued in court today in front of the Supreme Court. We told you before the election that Donald Trump thinks he's Putin and wants to be Putin and wants to be Kim Jong-un. You people said we didn't know what we were talking about. This is right out of Project 2025, the white Christian nationalist agenda. And Trump's people argued it today in front of the Supreme Court. You know,
citizens who are
I said, homegrowns are next. The homegrowns. You got to build about 5 more places.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right.
The president also floated this idea in that same meeting of potentially deporting U.S. citizens, people he called
Homegrown criminals. I'd like to include them in the group of people to get them out of the country.
to somewhere like El Salvador. I've been told that's not legal, but can you walk us through why that isn't legal?
Yeah, it wouldn't be deporting. He's envisioning some kind of contractual relationship where he ships convicted U.S. citizens off to a foreign country to be housed in a foreign prison. There's just no support for that in the statutes that govern how federal prisoners are supposed to be disposed of and handled. We've talked to experts, people who have worked for the Bureau of Prisons, and they say there's just nothing in the law that would allow that, and there are some constitutional issues with it. So it does not appear to be legal, and it's unlikely to happen.
in just hours. All non-citizens who are in the United States will be required to register with the government. On Thursday, a federal judge allowed the Trump administration to move forward with enforcement of an already existing law. Anyone in the country illegally must register.
I think that many people are going to register.
Bill Hing is the professor of law and migration studies at USF. Registration will be mandatory for anyone 14 years old and older. They will have to provide fingerprints and addresses. The registration policy dates back more than 80 years. The federal government arguing it just wants to enforce a law long on the books. But opponents say the registration requirement hasn't been universal since it was first introduced. If someone who is undocumented does not register, it's considered a federal crime, a misdemeanor.
Will anybody ever get prosecuted for a misdemeanor is the real question. And I don't think so. I think that somebody who is caught, who is undocumented, they're going to be deported because they're undocumented. I don't actually think the law is ever going to be enforced. I think that it's a mechanism to get undocumented people to expose themselves.
The faculty...
Take a look at this real quick.
You're referring to the president's idea for American citizens to potentially be deported. These would...
You heard that right. She said you're referring to the idea that American citizens could potentially be deported. She started out by saying that it was something that Fearless Leader has discussed more than once, that it's an idea that he's floating around. Then she goes on to justify it by trying to say that these would be violent offenders of the most heinous crimes, but we know what would happen. It would be the same thing that's already happening. It would only be illegal immigrants that were deported, but that one guy that we picked up and sent to El Salvador, that was a mistake. It would only be violent offenders that would be deported. But, you know what? These college students that were protesting against my policies, a couple of them got sent over, and that was a mistake. And we're not going to do anything about it. And that would continue to happen. And then they would justify it by saying, they were inciting violence. They were doing this. They were doing that. American citizens are American citizens. Are American citizens. Period. End of story. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Are we so weak that we can't handle our own criminals? Because that's the first implication. we can't deal with our own criminals, so we're going to send them to another country so that country can deal with them because we're not strong enough and we're not capable enough to do it ourselves. That's problem number one. That's implication number one. Implication number two is, how do you people not see this as World War II Germany all over again? It makes no sense. How is it not? It's blinding. It's fucking blinding. I can't even hardly talk about it anymore. I can't decide what content to make because there's just so God blessed much of it. How do you people not see this? How do you still support this man when he's talking about deporting American citizens? American citizens. American citizens. You don't need to go any further than that. I don't want to hear your reasons. I don't want to hear your excuses. I don't want to hear your justifications. American fucking citizens. Period. Full stop. I don't care if they're criminals. I don't care who they are. I don't care what they've done. You are trying to set a precedent of deporting American citizens. And if you don't see the fucking problem with that, I don't know what to tell you. We've been saying this was coming. We've been saying this is what it was leading to the entire time since before you fuckers voted him into office. But you know what? She had a weird laugh. Take a look at this real quick.